Hello, happy Friday. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. I heard a rumor that Friday is Venus Day. And after having a really beautiful morning with Dr. Kate, shout out to Kate Gordon, watching the sunrise and having conversation and spending time at the river, I was like, all right, you know what? I still have energy. So we're going to do the Venus retrograde meets erotic integration connection moment today, Friday. And, this week we had a full moon, as many of us know. We had a full moon in Aquarius. And what came up for me as I was in my own experience, and also as I connected with a lot of different humans, a lot of different clients, was seeing these patterns of intensity around choices that we have made that have not panned out the way that we wanted them to. And then feeling this kind of sense of shame or guilt or wrongness because of these choices we made that did not pan out the way we wanted them to, as if we could have known how they would have panned out. And in feeling this sense of guilt and shame for the choices we've made, I noticed this almost sense of confusion that people were experiencing, this disorientation regarding their choices, how they felt, the kind of shame and guilt spiral. Yes, you felt this too. So real. It's been up. This kind of shame, guilt spiral, and this like taking it personal almost of, oh, I made a choice, even if it was 10 years ago. And now I'm feeling the consequences of it. And I'm feeling this sense of like confusion because I don't really know where to go from here. Because what I'm realizing is that choice I made is not what I actually wanted. And I'm realizing that because of the evidence almost, the evidence around me. The evidence around me is not looking like I wanted it to. And so that must mean that the choices that I made were bad or wrong. And feeling this real heaviness, this real emotional intensity around those choices and around the consequences of those choices. And what it brought up into my awareness was the topic of Venus retrograde and how Venus, which has two rulers, right? Or, two astrological signs that we closely correlate with it. Taurus, the more inner sense of Venus, right? The inner values, the inner peace, the inner monologues and kind of orientation to the world. And then Libra, the outer, more relational dynamic of Venus. And it got me thinking because I was thinking about how Libra is all about the scales, right? It's about justice. It's about fairness. And it's justice and fairness for the sake of harmony, right? For harmony itself. And this got me going down the road in my mind of punishment. Mainly because something I see come up all the fucking time in working with living, breathing, brilliant humans is punishment, bodies, and choices. Now, specifically for context, I mainly work with female-bodied humans. And often what I notice is that when things don't go the way we want them to, when we make choices and we don't see the immediate payout, or we make choices and we're met with uncomfortable sensations because of the choices we make, we tend to knee-jerk into this good, bad, right, wrong, am I being punished kind of viewpoint. I'm not immune to this. For a really long time, my biggest fear was fear that I would do something wrong, especially publicly. Fear that I would post something, and I used to post a lot of nude photos. Fear that I would post something that was too much. Fear that it would be too big. Fear that I would, when I made my shift from dietitian into coaching and into human design, fear that I was going to be too woo-woo or that I wouldn't be able to take responsibility or whatever. So this fear of doing something wrong that many of us experience, and I would say, I imagine that all genders, all orientations experience a fear of being wrong, a fear of doing something wrong. And I do think just based on the monotheistic cultural conditioning, the religious conditioning, there is a subtle, multi-generation, very internal sense when you live in a female body that you have done something wrong just by existing. Now, I don't want to speak through the lens of victim here at all. I don't want us to be like, yeah, we're victims of the Christian religion, or we're victims of this or that. No, that's not where I'm going with this. But where I want to go before we start talking, excuse me, I'm getting all excited. Before we start talking about reclaiming our own internal individual sense of right or wrong, right? Our own internal authority, essentially. Before we start going there, I want to start unpacking some of the mythology, some of the belief systems that dictate, often really subtly, our attitudes around right or wrong, and around doing things that are wrong, around doing things that are bad. Because I think for many of us, subtly or overt, internally lives this idea of, we're wrong because we exist. We're wrong because there has been a long-held teaching that spirit and flesh are diametrically opposed, yes, and also that spirit is higher and flesh is lower. And so if you are catering to the flesh, if you are paying attention to bodily sensations, if you are, giving in or not using discipline or willpower over your bodily sensations, then you're not being spiritual and that you're doing something wrong. Not to mention the fact that in Genesis 3, right at the beginning of the Bible, whether you know it or not, many of us grew up through the lens of Sunday school. And in Genesis 3, it talks about how, let me read actually right from it. But it talks about how because we seeked knowledge, because we listened to the flesh, we were kicked out of Eden. We were banished from paradise. Now, this is really confusing because what it subtly implies is that we don't currently live in paradise. And what it also implies, again, is that spirit and flesh aren't just diametrically opposed. They're also at war with each other. Now, think about that for a second. As a being who is in a flesh body that is your vehicle for your consciousness, for your spirit. Think about that. Think about the implication in Genesis 3 that right away, because you ate from the apple, because you ate from the tree of knowledge, and Eve, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you interface with the serpent and its seductive ways? And we could call the serpent the body, but we could also call the serpent eros. We could also call the serpent life force and curiosity and hunger, appetite. Because you fed your appetite, I will punish you. You've done something wrong. And this is a story that we hear over and over and over. Because the world was bad, there was a flood. Because you did something wrong in the past life, you're now being punished in this life. Because you made that decision, you are now being punished. Munch, munch, munch. Yum, yum, yum. Also, for you specifically, munch, munch, munch. Sorry that I never answered your direct message. I would love to connect with you, genuinely. I know that was a while ago, but you just came back into my awareness after chaos. Anyways, beautiful. And let's circle back around. Right, wrong, good, bad, punishment. Okay? Now, I don't care if you grew up in a Christian household or you grew up in a household that was not religious at all. These are still narratives and stories that live in our bodies and in our culture, right? Think about what do we call someone put this in. What do we call the walk back from someone's house or dorm room after having a night of sex with them? What do we call it? The walk of shame, right? What do we say about people who overeat or overindulge? What do we say about people who do things that are fleshly? What do we perceive sensations of the flesh as? Often not good. Think about the fact that many of us have to get fucked up. We have to drink a lot of alcohol, or we have to, do whatever to sublimate our consciousness and sublimate our guilt and sublimate our shame in order to have a sexual dance. That's different than deliberately choosing to, by the way. I'm drinking hard kombucha right now. I have nothing against alcohol. Think about the fact that many of us have learned to dissociate from our bodies in order to avoid being confronted by our impulses, our urges, our desires. Think about the fact that we say things like, oh, I did a really hard workout, so I deserve this pizza. Or, oh, I told a lie, so I deserved that thing. I deserved that punishment. I deserved it to go wrong. Now, some of it's lighthearted and good-natured, but what I want to bring our attention to here is the fact that in many of us, there is this kind of innate fear that we've done something wrong. This innate fear of being wrong. This can be sexual. This can be sensual. This can just be in our expression. This can be, oh, is this dress too revealing? Is my jewelry too much? Am I too much? Am I too expressive? Am I too sexy? Am I too flirtatious? Am I too outgoing, right? All the time when we're not getting affirmation from others, which of course we don't want to base all of our confidence and all of our expression on affirmation from others, but self implies other. And so we're always in the dance, right? We're always in the dance of being conditioned by how people respond to us. What's good, what's not good, what's right, what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's not. But the thing that I want to come all the way back to is this idea that there is a standard good or bad. And this Venus retrograde, I actually want to invite you to recondition that, to decondition this idea that there is a good or bad, that there is a right or wrong, and that there is one standard for it. Now, obviously, if I told you that I killed someone, which I haven't, and I wouldn't, unless maybe my life was on the line, or someone I really love was being threatened. If I told you that I killed someone, you would immediately be like, oh, so that's wrong, right? We have these internal senses of what is right or wrong. But on top of that, there's so many layers over our own code of individual behavior based on how our body responds to things. Layered on top of that are a lot of layers of conditioning. Yeah, deliberate consumption and nuance. Amen. For sure. For all things. For sex, for alcohol, for cannabis, for television, for Instagram. The Goldilocks principle. Find the fucking sweet spot, baby. And you'll know what that is when you live in your body. And this is where, when we can actually decondition right or wrong. And I actually, it's really funny because sometimes I look back and I think it was like 2017, 18. I started doing Instagram lives, and if you go back through the archives, they're there. And I had this series called Leaving Behind Good or Bad. Leaving Behind Good or Bad, the monologues. And I will tell you where that came from. It came from my fear of being wrong. And as I started to unpack my fear of being wrong, for God only knows what, for taking chances, for living my life the way I wanted to, for not going to an office to work, for posting nude photos, for expressing myself freely, for talking about things that were hard. And of course, I'm sharing my experience because that's what feels safe for me, as opposed to sharing clients' experiences or speaking about other people. I'm going to share mine always. In the process of deconditioning that good or bad and really unpacking, hey, where is this fear of wrongness, of being wrong? Where is the subtle thread of I feel wrong for existing coming from? What it was coming from me, is attachment to these ideas of good and bad, right and wrong. And what I started to realize very quickly, and this is a really simple conversation, is that I was orienting myself to good, bad, right, wrong based on external definitions of good, bad, right, wrong. When we do that, we get disoriented immediately. Because, for example, if sex is bad, except for in these specific scenarios, and I find myself having sex in a way that is bad, then immediately I'm drawn into my mental plane saying, oh, Alyssa, you're having sex in a way that is bad. And now, all of a sudden, I'm confronted with this external definition of what is bad, and I get to run it through my body. I have to run it through my body if I'm attached to it. And as I run it through my body, I start to feel what? Guilt, shame, fear, disconnect, littleness, like I want to dissolve. Right? So when we orient ourselves to what is good or bad based on external rules or factors or codes of morality, I don't care if they're Christianity or the fucking New Age, right? Even the New Age, you got to look a certain way. You got to do a certain way. Purity, your diet needs to be clean. Don't consume alcohol. How dare you even think that da-da-da-da. You can't watch TV. You're going to go watch TV? What a waste of your time. Right? There's codes of good, bad everywhere, baby. They're everywhere. There's external codes of good, bad everywhere. And while structure and rules can be helpful, especially when we are orienting ourselves to new information or new ways of existing, those structures and those rules and those limits and those boundaries are really, in my opinion, only meant to be a springboard, an initial orientation. But what happens when we start to identify with those external senses of good, bad, right, wrong? Well, then we do a bad thing, and what starts to happen in our psyche? What starts to happen in our awareness? Oh, gosh. I can't believe. Hi, Dad. I can't believe that I went and did that thing that's considered bad. And now I feel guilty, and now I feel shame, and now I feel like I maybe need to punish myself, right? Self-flagellation. Oh, gosh, I have to atone somehow. And this is where, when we're bringing it back to the conversation of Christianity, of the New Age, of all of these subtle rules and regulations and boundaries and limits, can they be helpful? Yeah, for sure. For example, let's talk about sex. Is it actually helpful to be like, don't just walk around having sex with any human anytime? Yeah, for sure that's helpful. Because sex can be sacred, it can be divine, it can be connection to something bigger than us. And we're really open during sex, right? Our biochemistry is actually creating bonding and bondage to the person that we're orgasming with and experiencing pleasure. So is it great to have some values around how we express and experience sex? Yes. But is it actually helpful to say sex outside of marriage, for example, is bad? You tell me. Or is it better to say, hey, sex has consequences. Those consequences are, you might get pregnant, you might have a child, you might contract a sexually transmitted infection, most of which at this point we can work with. You might create really intimate connection with another human, right? Is it better to educate, or is it better to create rules that create ignorance and then use emotional manipulation to create shame and guilt so that people don't break the rules? When we use external sources to orient us to what is good or bad, right or wrong for us, we get incredibly disoriented, and we essentially willingly feed the beast of emotional manipulation that says, if you do wrong, you will be punished. No one who is actually grounded into their body and connected to their spirit, and I'm going to get to your comment here in 1 second, no one's going to actually want to do wrong, right? When I've ever felt jealousy, do I actually like how the feeling of jealousy feels in my body as I run it through my body? Do I actually enjoy that feeling? Fuck no. When I have ever done something out of integrity, do I actually like how that feeling feels? Fuck no, I don't. My body's like, girl, no. Like, we do not like this. So as long as we're real with ourselves, and connected to ourselves, we feel the things that need course correction. We do. But what happens when we start to put these lenses, these layers of external orientation to what is good, bad, right, wrong, is we actually stop, in my experience and opinion, orienting to our own internal compass, our own inner authority. We stop taking responsibility for the thing because we say, oh, it's fine, I'll go confess it. Oh, it's fine, I'll atone for it. It's fine, I'll self-flagellate. It's fine, I'll shit talk myself in my head. Rather than saying, oh, you know what? I actually decide what is right or wrong, good or bad. And in doing so, I am then asking myself to take responsibility for that. I am then asking myself to be really fucking real with myself when something doesn't feel good and to own it rather than punish myself for it. And when we can own a thing, then the shame and the guilt immediately go away. You know, this is a really specific example and it has nothing to do with Venus retrograde, but it was really hard for me. I put someone into anaphylactic shock last year. I host dinners here at this beautiful table and I love hosting them. And last year I put someone into anaphylactic shock. They asked me, Alyssa, does the dinner have? And I had had a tequila. I had smoked a spliff. I was hosting a 10-person dinner. I was running around making food, doing all the things, setting all the things up. And we're in the flow. And they were like, hey, does anything have nuts, peanuts, or sesame? And I was like, nope. I actually held the walnuts from the salad this time. There was tahini in the dressing. And I had made the dressing way before. It didn't even cross my mind. This human took a bite of the tahini and they looked at me and they were like, I can taste that this has tahini in it and I'm not going to be okay. You think I felt good in that moment? Now, technically, did I do anything wrong? No, but was I not being vigilant? Was I not being deliberate? Did I not take a pause and be like, ooh, this person's in danger? Yeah, that was my bad. It was really hard for me internally to work through this. In the 24 hours that it really hit, he ended up being totally okay. But what it really confronted me with is we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to fuck up. Even when we're deliberate, even when we're awake, even when we're attuned, we're going to make mistakes. That's part of being a human. Ooh, and that's a hard thing. I do not like making mistakes. I will tell you that. But what I'm learning is that I would rather make mistakes and live expanded into my experience, right? Live, to quote Dr. Kate, at the edge of my experience, at the edges of my experience, than to not live and try to avoid making mistakes. And the reason I feel that way is because over the last, really, 7 years, something that's been super important to me is deconditioning right, wrong, good, bad. And when I say deconditioning right, wrong, good, bad, and I have not forgot about you, Emily, I will circle back to what you said. I'd love to read it, but I want to keep going here. What I mean by conditioning right, wrong, good, bad is rather than basing my sense of right, wrong, good, bad on external factors, is instead really feeling what comes up in my body, really feeling the sensations that come up in my body. Hey, was I clear on my intention here? Hey, was I deliberate? Was I open-hearted? Was I transparent? Was I truthful? Was I real? When I made the mistake, did I own it? Did I stay in integrity with the truth of how I feel and say, shit, I messed up. I'm really sorry. My bad. And not because someone told me it was bad and then you need to apologize, you need to atone, you need to be punished. But also, or what I should say is, but instead, feeling how it feels in my physical body, feeling the sensations that come up and go, oh yeah, yikes, that was not optimal. And I know that, and I'm going to apologize, or I'm going to own it, or I'm going to change the behavior. Because when we get stuck in the way of wrong, this is immoral, this is dishonest, this is unjust, based on someone else's standards, then there's kind of this passivity there. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I'll confess. Like I said, I'll atone, I'll apologize. Or we feel so ashamed that then we're emotionally in this shame guilt spiral. A spiral that's very hard to be proactive in. A spiral that's very hard to be confident in. A spiral that's very hard to own our actions in. And that shame, guilt spiral is disempowering. I used to see it all the time when I primarily worked with humans as a dietitian. You know, they'd be like, I want to eat healthy. I want to do this. I want to do that. I say, cool, let's do it. Let's go. They'd mess up. They would cheat. Think about the fact that we use the word cheat in regard to how we eat. That's fucking insane. You cheated on your diet? Do you know what that says to your brain when you hear that? Think about the word cheat. That word is not cute. That word does not say integrity. And that creates a feeling of, I did something wrong. I did something wrong. I cheated on my diet. And it's like, no, you actually chose to eat the thing. You actually chose it. If you get stuck in the shame, guilt spiral around what you chose because you feel like it was wrong, because you were oriented to what you should eat based on someone else's rules, that's not cheating. Did you listen to your body feedback? Did you actually want to eat the thing? How did it feel when you ate it? Did you even taste it? Or were you so consumed by the shame, guilt spiral that happened because you didn't follow the rules that were given to you externally, not at all based on your own body feedback, that you didn't even get to enjoy what you chose to eat? I feel that so much getting stuck in that spiral instead of being responsible and accountable for our actions, boundaries, desires is such a huge part of this human experience. It is. Well said. I'm going to read that again because I think you said it perfectly. I feel that so much getting stuck in the spiral and the shame guilt spiral instead of being responsible and accountable for our actions, boundaries, and desires is such a huge part of this human experience. It is such a huge part of the human experience. And we perceive that we've done something wrong because rules and regulations outside of ourselves tell us that we've done something wrong. And we get stuck in shame, guilt. It really does nothing good for us. It does nothing beneficial for us. It just makes us get stuck in victim state. And if there's one thing I know, it's that victim state is the opposite of freedom. Victim state is the opposite of freedom. Why? Because victim state is so disempowering. When we stay in victim state and we choose to stay in victim state, we are punishing ourselves. We are actively punishing ourselves. And in my opinion, the best way to right the fear of being wrong is by just taking ownership, is being real, is being connected to our bodies and connected to the intimacy of our experience. You know, when we think back to this, even in relational dynamics, again, Venus retrograde, this is where we see it. Think about Venus. Think about aesthetic. Think about embodying our values. They're all things that work a lot better when we're willing to take responsibility for them, right? And this is not an easy conversation to have, but think about in relationship. Think about in relationship dynamic. Let's say you're in a relationship with another human and you do something and they get mad at you. They get upset with you. Are you going to, throw gasoline on the fire and play the victim and get all inflamed about it and, get all, I'm going to fight you because I did something wrong and now you're not happy with me and I'm going to play the victim. I'm going to make it all dramatic and get all emotional. Does that actually feel helpful? Does that actually feel good? Or, now I'm going to walk on eggshells around you because you got upset with me that I did this thing. Do those things actually feel helpful, or does it feel the most helpful in a relational dynamic when rather than being in the shame guilt spiral of I did something wrong, instead we step up, heart open, mind open, curious, humbled, but also confident and grounded into our own authority, and we say, shit, I messed up. I'm really sorry. Genuinely, I will change my behavior. And then we have the integrity to have the follow through to change the behavior. And that relationship, diet, expression, work, whatever it is, that feels a lot better that integrity, that stepping in, that, I'm going to stay grounded into myself and into my own authority. That feels a lot better than playing some game where we think we need to be punished because we did something wrong. Or not doing what we actually feel is right for us because we're afraid it's going to be wrong and we're afraid we're going to be punished if we do it. That is a real fear. I feel magnetized to do this thing. I feel called to do this thing. I feel called to express in this way, and I'm not going to because I'm afraid that it's going to be perceived as wrong or bad, and then I'm going to be punished by it. Think about fucking cancel culture. It's the Garden of Eden all over. It's not woke. It's not enlightened. Can we talk about things in the open? Yeah, for sure. Can we bring harmful behavior to conversation? Yes, absolutely. But to cancel someone or to cancel like anything, that's the same exact thing as kicking someone out of Eden, kicking Adam and Eve out of Eden because they chose to eat the apple. Choice is meant to be empowering, and it's empowering when we can take ownership over our choice because we're not stuck in a shame guilt spiral that says, ooh, you made the wrong choice. Time for punishment. Bad girl. Bad boy. And listen, when I say that, it's not always external, right? Sometimes we do this to ourselves internally. And this is why I'm saying during this Venus retrograde, get this shit up in your awareness where you start going, how do I perceive good? How do I perceive bad? How do I perceive right? How do I perceive wrong? What are those things? Hola. What are those things born from? What are they born from? For real. Are they born from the reality of your own experience and your connection to your body? Do you have an open emotional center, Emily? Sometimes conflict, in through the lens of human design, 50% of humans have an open emotional center, meaning they have a very variable experience in their emotions based on who they are around. When you have an open center or an undefined center, it's kind of like a screen, okay? Any open white centers in the body graph, undefined centers, they act like a screen. What does a screen do? Wind blows through a screen, right? Energy moves through a screen. And when we identify with the energy, when we identify with the wind moving through the screen, what happens? We get really confused. Oh, I'm the wind. No, you're not. You're a screen. The wind's moving through you. The energy's moving through you. So a lot of people that have open emotional centers will use conflict avoidance because they don't want to feel like they're the wind. Nope, you have a defined emotional center. If you're an emotional projector, your emotional center is defined. That means it's colored in. That means you have consistent, fixed access to an emotional wave. So for you, the challenge is no truth in the now, right? When you start to feel your emotional low tank, rather than looking for reasons it's tanking through the mind, because the mind is conditioned to be like, oh, did I do something wrong? Shame, guilt, spiral. Did I do something bad? Shame, guilt, spiral. I'm in a low. I must have. Instead of doing that, your cue is, ooh, I'm going into a low, or I'm in a high. No truth in the now. Let me ride it out till I feel neutrality. Okay. So again, with this good, bad, right, wrong, when we orient externally to what is good, bad, right, wrong, we get into this place where we're not able to take ownership of it. We don't have our own authority. And that's one of my favorite fucking things about human design. Take it or leave it. It's your choice. You can do this without human design if you're really vigilant. But when we commit to having a sense of inner authority, I make my own decisions, not based on, what the Bible told me, not based on what the New Age told me, not based on what whoever the fuck guru, not based on what Alyssa told me, not based on what this teacher told me. I make my own decisions, and I'm proud of those decisions, and I stay in the integrity of those decisions. Then when we make a decision that unfolds and we're like, ooh, that was the decision that I made, yeah, and I'm not liking how it's unfolding. It was maybe the wrong decision, but that's internal orientation to what is wrong, as opposed to someone being like, you had sex before you're married, that's wrong. Is it risky to have sex with someone you don't know? Yeah, sure. Are some risks worth the reward? Yeah, sure. And are you going to know that it was a good risk for you to take because of how it feels in your body? Or if it was not a good risk for you to take because of how it feels in your body? Absolutely. And the point of this conversation is, let's start orienting to what's good, bad, right, wrong, based on how it feels in our body when we experience it. And not project our own sense of good, bad, right, wrong onto the world. Yeah, becoming our own authority versus blindly following systems. Exactly. That's exactly this conversation in a nutshell. And that goes for everything from how we express to how we fuck, to how we eat, to how we relate, to how we connect, to how we be in the world, how we walk, to how I look at you, to how I talk. You know? And then I want to go back because I know there were some comments here before they get buried. Yeah, here comes the illusion of power and control again. The illusion of power and control. Yeah, and this is where, I just had a conversation with an amazing human, Mensur. If you hear this, see this, much respect. I hung out with him yesterday, and we were talking about exactly that. We can't control things, but we can control how we respond to the things that we can't control. And that's the whole thing about finding that sense of inner authority is, when I say, oh yeah, I do have a sense of inner authority, and life throws me that curveball, or I make a decision and it doesn't unfold the way I want it to, then I have the authority to change my mind, rather than feeling stuck and a victim to my circumstances. Humans like to reject each other, even though it's one of our biggest fears, hold back. Yeah, let's talk about rejection. Let's talk about rejection, because I could do a whole Instagram live on rejection. Rejection. You want to go there? Let's go there. A lot of the time, whether we're in interpersonal relationships, or we are in business, or we are in self-expression, or whatever we're doing, there's always a chance of rejection. And one of my biggest asks to anyone listening to this, whenever you listen to it, is stop taking rejection personally. Rejection's not personal. If someone rejects me, it's not about me. It's about someone else's perception of me and how they experience me and their preferences. When someone rejects you, it's not about you. It ain't. It's not. You can take it personal. That's a victim. Right? And that's also using the orientation of outward good, bad, right, wrong to orient to the world. When we orient to the world through good, bad, right, wrong, that's external to us, and we get rejected, we're like, ooh, there must be something wrong with me. That person didn't want me. There's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, sure, there might be some spots that you're not the strongest in, just like there's spots I'm not the strongest in. Are we here to be good at everything? No. Are we here to have lots of experiences that teach us how to get better at things that we're here to focus on? Abso-fucking-lutely. And so that's where, rejection. I went through, for some reason, probably because my parents gave me attention when I was little. Thanks. If you're still watching, Dad, love you. Thanks for the attention. If you're not, feel me through the clouds. Who could reject you? I don't know. It's not about me though. Right? So here's what I'll tell you. I've never been super afraid of rejection because I had parents who gave me attention. I had parents who said, you're a legitimate human. I'm going to give you attention. I'm going to listen to you when you talk, and I'm going to respect your opinions, even if I don't agree with them. As long as you embody them respectfully and you present yourself with dignity and integrity, I see you. Okay? So I've never really felt like rejection had much weight. But I will tell you this. If you scroll all the way back to the beginning of my Instagram, I've been rejected lots of times. Whenever I make shifts, whenever I make pivots, right? I used to just post climbing photos. Oh, climbing photos, trying hard, talking about, climbing and projecting and body image and thinness. And, then I kind of pivoted and I started to talk about sexuality and expression and nudity and embodiment. And I got rejected by a lot of people when I made that pivot from climbing into more self-expression based on what I was personally experiencing. Hello, Dr. Kate. You'll have to go back and watch this because I quoted you. Actually, I did. I got rejected a lot. I lost massive amounts of followers for relative to how many followers I have. And at first I started to take it personal. At first I was like, oh yeah, this is like a personal thing. Like there must be something wrong with me if I'm losing all these followers. And then I was like, oh yeah, no, Liz, if you're practicing what you preach, if you're actually orienting yourself to good, bad, right, wrong based on your own internal authority, and someone rejects you, it's not about you. You're not doing anything wrong. Someone's not rejecting you. They're saying, hey, my preferences, they don't align with what you're now talking about or expressing. But it doesn't make me, Alyssa, innately wrong because someone rejects me. Rejection isn't personal. Rejection is just an expression of, hey, we're not aligned. We're not congruent. This isn't working anymore. And that's where the invitation to say, hey, listen, orient yourself based on your own sense of inner yes, no, right, wrong is so potent and so important. Because then when we have experiences that are kind of like, I just got rejected. Then rather than thinking that rejection means there's something wrong with us, right? Just like we've been taught to think that if we do something bad, we need to be punished. When we do something bad, we're gonna feel that in our own body. That's enough of a punishment. There's no need to punish. And when we can reorient to doing to bad good internally, as opposed to bad good externally, then we're not as quick to knee jerk into like, oh, I did something bad based on external standards, or I was rejected and so there must be something wrong with me. And so this Venus retrograde, can we go beyond relationship that's like, oh, it's about the other, and can we ground it into our own being and be like, listen, self implies other. So let me get my own shit right. Let me get my own shit dialed, which is a process, of course, until we die. But let me get my own shit dialed so that when I'm interfacing with other, I'm less likely, yes, my God, I love you over there. I heard that cute little sigh, my kitty. I'm less likely to be like, oh, they rejected me. Oh, this thing happened. Oh, this, that. And I'm wrong for it. It's like, no, we all want to be loved. We all want to connect. We all want to come together. We all want to express ourselves and be actualized in our expression. Don't forget where this Venus retrograde is happening, y'all. It's happening in Leo. What is Leo about? It's about self-actualizing through our expression. And in order to express in a way that's self-actualizing, we have to orient to our own right, wrong, good, bad. All right, hold on, I still remember hearing you make a better door than window. And one of the wounds I'm working through is being seen. For context, this Venus retrograde is through my 6th house with Chiron. Wow, intense. Thank you for speaking this. You're so welcome. Thank you. You make a better door than window. What does that even mean? Like you're better to walk through than to look through? Like what does that even mean? Also, in regard to, it sounds kind of like maybe that was like a rejection. But whenever I think of rejection, I really do think of like, it's actually just not about you. It's like if someone insults, like, okay, let's get nuanced here. If someone insults me, if someone is trying to hurt me and they insult me, it might hurt. I might feel slightly offended for a moment. But really, to me, that insult is more about how that person's feeling than how I'm feeling. Oh, whenever you were in the way. Standing in front of the TV. Yeah, being in the way. Well, that's the same wound, right? Being wrong. If someone insults me in a reactive way, I'm not going to take it personal. If someone lovingly who knows me comes to me and says, Liz, you're fucking up here, and this is my opinion of why, and I'm really curious, like, are you open to hearing all of this? That that I'm going to take personal. That I'm going to be like, okay, you see me. You're bringing something to me that's hard to bring. And that I'm going to take personal. But rejection, or that from someone who doesn't know me, or from someone who doesn't agree with me, or an insult, you make a better door than a window. That's more about how the other person feels. Oh, I'm annoyed you're doing that thing, so I'm going to insult you, rather than just open-heartedly and transparently ask. Earlier when I was talking about victim freedom, through the lens of human design, for the last 400 years, we have been under the influence of a very tribal, structured influence, planetarily and neutrinos-wise. And what we're trending toward come 2027 is a shift into the individual, a shift into this kind of influence that's about the individual. And a lot of the mutation through which that will happen, a lot of the change through which that will happen is through the gate or the archetypes of Pisces, Virgo, the gate 55. This gate is called the gate of abundance. Gate of spirit. Abundance is a matter of spirit. Abundance is a matter of spirit. Now, in my opinion, you can plug in any word, not just abundance, into that equation. Intelligence is a matter of spirit. Beauty is a matter of spirit. Wealth is a matter of spirit. Someone told me once, oh, Liz, you have millionaire energy. You're going to be a millionaire. And I was like, I already feel like I'm a millionaire. Do I make 6 figures a year? Nope. No, I don't. Do I put my resources into things I value? Yes, I do. That makes me feel like a millionaire. And this is where we can all play victim to our circumstances. We can all play stuck. We can all play, oh, I deserve to be punished. Oh, I've done something wrong. Oh, I'm so guilty for that thing I did wrong 10 years ago, and I'm still holding the guilt of that thing I did wrong 10 years ago. That's playing victim. That's staying stuck. That is choosing to stay identified with some sense of wrong that you didn't really know any better until the time. That's the thing. A lot of the times when we fuck up, a lot of times when we make mistakes, we didn't really know any better. And if we did, shame on us momentarily. But we all end up suffering when we do something we know isn't going to serve us. And that's punishment enough. And, how I started this conversation was just saying, this last week I have felt up for so many of my clients this feeling of like, ooh, fuck, I made all these decisions and they didn't go the way I want them to. And so now I just feel super stuck because this is bad. I chose wrong. And it's like, hold on. Let's pause and just say that all bad, right, wrong is relative. And if you made a decision 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago, that now feels wrong, instead of being like, oh, I'm so identified with this bad feeling, this guilt, this shame, this wrongness, can you actually just see that nothing that you've ever done is in vain? That every single experience provides an opportunity, even when it doesn't go how we want it to. And that you always can change your mind. You always can make another decision. You always can pivot. I always can pivot. I can always change my mind. We can always do this. And that's part of being a human. And that's how we right the fear of being wrong, is we be willing to have experiences. We be willing to try things. We be willing to make decisions that are vulnerable. And then when we make them and we go, ooh, that unfolded badly, that went wrong, because we feel it in our body as truly that went wrong, not because of some external wrong definition or some external system or external law imposing that on us, but we genuinely are like, yeah, no, that did not go how I wanted it to. When that happens, we can take ownership of it. We can take ownership of it and go, okay, cool. I can make another decision to change my circumstances. I struggle with my heart. Hi, Nicole, by the way. Hello. I miss you. I hope you're super well. Seriously. I struggle with my heart to match up with my mind. Okay. So syncing heart with mind. So I'm just going to go right ahead and say, if you have a defined sacral, if anyone through the lens of human design has a defined sacral, you shouldn't be making choices with your heart or your mind. You should be making them from your sacral. And that's 70% of the population. I love you too. That's 70% of the population. So think about that for a second. You have heart and you have mind and you also have sacral. So through the lens of human design, the thing I love about it is, let's look at sacral response. Sacral response is not some random, just listen to your body. Yeah, it is listen to your body, but it's going off the fact that the body, the nervous system, even mind included, right? Because, let's not even say mind. Brain included in the nervous system. Brain is part of the body. Mind is not. So brain, nervous system, body is filtering so much goddamn information. So much information. More information, exponentially more information than the mind can process in any given second. Don't quote me on this, but some time ago when I started to record human design readings, I looked up the statistic because I know people are always like, oh, so where does the sacral response come from? Where does my splenic response come from? I will get to your question in 1 minute. I love it. Thank you. And what I started to look up was okay, where is the sacral response coming? What is the science behind any of this? And what I learned was that the body, brain, nervous system, the body processes up to, I think it's 11 million bits of information per second. The mind can only process 40 to 50 bits of information per second. Now, I do not know what the fuck bits means, but it's a metric. And we know 11 million is exponentially more than 40 to 50. And so when we're making decisions with our mind actually can't comprehend all of the information that our body, our nervous systems, our organs, our systems, our processing, our sensing, it can't keep up with that. Our mind can't keep up with our brain, nervous system, body. So when I say to clients, hey, a great way to make decisions is to listen to your body response, your pre-verbal yes, no. And again, Edgar, I'll get to your question in just a second. But when I say, hey, respond from your sacral, if you have emotional authority, hey, let your wave take you up and down and up and down until you reach a place of neutrality, instead of being oh, I'm up high, I feel so good, yes, 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 or I'm down low and I feel so shitty and no. Or any of those things. Instead of being a ragdoll and getting tossed all around by the mind, which again can only process so much information and is never going to be contented by a decision, because the mind's always playing the what if game because it's trying to keep you alive by calculating all the variables. And the heart, Nicole, to go back to what you said, to me the heart is about compassion. The heart's about magnetism. The heart's about direction. The heart's about, connection to something bigger than us. The heart's about vulnerability. To me, the heart is not a decision maker. It gives us a sense of understanding, a sense of compassion, a sense of vulnerability, a sense of connection. But no one has heart-centered authority. Sure, you could say that, you could argue, some people call the will center in human design, or the ego, the heart. That's bullshit. I know, Ross said it, whatever. The will, the ego is the will. It's the assertion of your ego or the assertion of your will. If you have a defined will and you call it your heart, that's confusing. The G center, identity, love, and direction. Oftentimes that can be perceived as the heart. It's not. It's correlated with the magnetic monopole, with a field, the toroidal field of the earth. Macro equals micro, as above, so below, as without, so within. Humans have a field of our heart. Think about heart math, right? So here's the question. How can you learn to make better decisions in a more assertive, faster way? I love all we were talking about. Thank you. I do too, and I appreciate you being in the conversation. To me, you need, learn your human design. Because here's the thing about human design. It's not a cure-all. It's not a magic bullet. It's a practice that says, yeah, we're a little woo-woo. We take in some astrology. We take in some I Ching. We take in some Kabbalah. We take in the chakra system. And in synthesizing all of these systems, we're going to provide you with a experiment. an experiment that's specific to you. And what this experiment is, and I love this because it's experimental, it's not prescription. What the experiment is not take your statin drugs or pray to this God, say this prayer every day. It's, hey, try to follow, see what happens if you follow this strategy that's given to you based on the relatively woo-woo information. And if it doesn't work for you, leave it behind. And if it does work for you, open into it. Keep going. And I will tell you this. The way you make a faster decision is you learn what your inner authority is. Okay, so about 70% of the population has an inner authority that's their sacral center, right? The center for life force, workforce, energy. The center in which Eros, life force. Remember the definition of Eros. Remember the definition of Eros. The sum of life-preserving instincts that are made manifest as impulses. When I say to you, hey, you want to go grab a drink? Let's go. What's your impulse? What happened in your body? When I say to you, hey, do you love working Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.? What's your impulse? When I say to you, does it feel really good to spend a lot of time with your face on a screen? Does it feel really good to watch TV? Do you actually enjoy having this conversation right now? Do you like cabbage? Do you like mayonnaise? Do you enjoy eating steak? Do you like swimming in the ocean? Does your body have an impulse, a response to those questions? A preference? Of course it does. And each person's response to life to those questions is yes or no, based on their preferences. Preferences do not come from the mind. If I say to you, do you like cabbage? And you say no, that's not because your mind doesn't like cabbage. That's where we get distortion. Oh, I'm going to eat a vegan diet because my mind said I should because I just consumed this documentary that is incredibly biased and told me I should eat vegan. So now my mind is making decisions about how to control the vehicle. Not what it's here for. So no, your preference for or against cabbage doesn't come from your mental plane. It comes from your body, from a collection of data that your body goes, yeah, that sulfur taste, not for us. Okay, cool, respected. You don't like cabbage. I'm going to keep it off of your salad. Okay, so how do you make decisions faster? You get in your fucking body. You connect to your vehicle. And you feel your impulse in response to life. 70% of the population define sacral. Your strategy, respond. Where do you respond from? Your inner authority. What's your inner authority? Your sacral. Now, of course, some of those people have a defined sacral. Preverbal, yes. But also, some of that population has an emotional wave. And this is where that mutation I was talking about, the 55, 59, the shift of the influence, the shift of the, cross that we are under, shifting, 2027. Where was I just going with this? My burp distracted me. Happens. That shift, we are going to shift into an emotional awareness. Okay? So yeah, 50% of you who have defined emotional centers, if you're looking at your body graph, it's a triangle on the right-hand side. We're talking human design lens right now. 50% of humans who have that defined emotional center, that consistent fixed access to up, down, neutrality, that's how you make decisions. That's how you navigate. Okay? So this is where let's circle it back around because Josh is home, which means Friday afternoon has started for me officially. Hi, baby. Let's circle it all the way back around. When we can learn how to make decisions from our own inner authority, when we can orient to right, wrong, good, bad, not based on someone else's rules, someone else's systems, someone else's new age, Christianity, whatever, then we can actually take ownership of the decisions we make. And that's how we decondition. And that's also how we have the most beautiful experience. So I'm out. Thank you all who joined this conversation. I really appreciate it. Full invitation during this Venus retrograde to decondition your concept of right, wrong, good, bad. full invitation during this Venus retrograde to ground into your own inner authority. And if you're like, Alyssa, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about when you say inner authority, well, just feel your own sense of compass, of direction. Or go pull your human design on Genetic Matrix or Jovian Archive and start to do your experiment. And if you want to hear more about it, ask me. Ask me the questions that you want to hear, because I am happy to hop on here and talk about them. Yes, or hire me. Hire me to work with you. I love this stuff. I live it. I breathe it. I love it. Okay? Thank you all. You're so welcome for the answer. I want that drink. 8-hour job. No. Cheers. Hey, see? Your body knew. All right, y'all. Talk soon.